up, nerds? My name is Leslie Smith. Welcome to the Nerdy Narrative. This is a channel I use to share with all of you about all of the things that I read. I joke and call it a Heinz 57 channel because I read everything. I just read in a multitude of different genres, and I am a big promoter of reading diversely just because it is so fun to see the connections between our authors of today and those of yesterday. Guys, today is Friday, and that means it is time for a weekly reading wrap-up, all about what I read, what I'm still reading, and what I plan to stick my nose into next. First up, let's talk about Sanctuary by William Faulkner. I finished this book so fast. Sanctuary is the book that was chosen by the group that is hosting the Faulkner and August read-along, and it was supposed to be a chapter a day basically, and I just blazed through it. Faulkner is an amazing author, and this sucker is a psychological thriller that just had the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end several times. The suspense, the foreboding, the danger that surrounded this story, it was like you wanted to keep turning the pages to see what was going to happen next, but then you also didn't want to turn the page and see what was going to happen next. If you're a reader that has any type of content warnings, I highly recommend you go and look into that before picking this one up. There's just a lot that goes on in this story. At times, it's very brutal. If you're one of my fellow horror readers, this is going to be right up your alley. I would say this is one of the best thrillers I've ever read, and that is saying a lot because Faulkner wrote this in 1931. And here I am saying it's better than most of the present day thrillers I've read. Next, I finished Billy Summers by Stephen King. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars out of 5. There were so many elements about this book that I really love. As usual, Stephen King does an amazing job writing his characters, whether they're primary, secondary, tertiary, whatever they are. Stephen King really has an uncanny ability to make you care about all of them. As a result, just knowing Stephen King as an author, you're constantly in fear of, you know that you love all these characters. Something bad's gonna happen to somebody. So you're just kind of waiting for that other shoe to drop, and who is it gonna be? So that just adds an extra layer of just mystery and suspense and thrill to it. Secondly, something else that Stephen King is really well known for is all of his literary references. It was really funny because at the time that I started reading this, I was also reading Sanctuary by William Faulkner. There's a whole lot of references made to William Faulkner, specifically The Sound and the Fury. I ate that up. But not just Faulkner. There were tons of other nods to other authors, which I really, really enjoy when Stephen King does that. You know, another thing, our main character is an assassin, but his cover in this particular story is, he is an author. And it was so funny because he gets into his cover. He's like, okay, I'm gonna write something. Maybe I'll write my autobiography. And so he really gets into it, really enjoys it, and that's also how we get our backstory on our main character. I thought that was really, really clever. Those are the only 2 books that I finished this week. Let's talk about what I'm still reading. I am still working my way through the arc, Certain Dark Things by Sylvia Moreno Garcia, and surprisingly, I've gotten more interested in it. There are a lot of different aspects that she takes and tweaks in this. I would call this an urban fantasy about vampires. It takes place in and around Mexico. One of the things that I like but also don't like, so we have vampires, but there are different kinds of vampires. There are different species and subspecies. They have different elements and characteristics that make them stand out from one another. They feed differently, they look different, but at the same time, what I don't like about it is while it's cool to have these different species and subspecies, she doesn't really go into much detail. At first, she's just throwing all of this at you like you're supposed to know what these different species are, and the names are like 16, 20 letters long, and I'm just like, was there a book prior to this that I was supposed to have read to understand where all of this was laid out for me? So that's why I was feeling last week when I started, I'm like, this feels like the second book in the series. Now, she has gotten better as the book has gone on, so if you're willing to plow through that, She has gotten a little better about defining the differences between each, which I am really enjoying. The plot of the story has finally made itself known, and I'm getting interested in that. I'm still only about 25% of the way in. It's definitely a slow burn, at least it is so far, but I am enjoying myself with it, so that's a plus. I did look into it a little bit further. Last week when I mentioned reading it, I was confused because it looked like this was a re-release, and in fact it is. It was originally released, I believe, in October of 2016, and then it went out of print. It was either 2016 or 2015. So for whatever reason, they decided to do another run. Now, I'm not sure why they did an arc for it, unless they were wanting to get reviewers looking at it and putting some fresh reviews out there to drum up interest. At any rate, the only thing that I can tell that has been changed is the cover. From what I've been able to find, the author didn't actually update anything in the manuscript itself. I am still working my way through the Counts of Monte Cristo, which is a read-along that I am participating in. So you're going to see this in a lot of weekly reading updates for the next few months. I'm on chapter 16. I read at least one chapter a day, sometimes two. I am really enjoying it. It's really fun seeing this slow setup of just the wrongs that were done. It feels like I am literally walking every step with our characters through all of this time and just how this story is getting set up. I am very excited to see how this one continues on. Like I said I was going to do last week, once I wrapped up Billy Summers, I started The Dark Tower by Stephen King, the 7th book. Guys, the end is here. And it has started out with a bang. I've only been reading this for a couple of days and I am already 250 pages in. I keep expecting the pacing to slow down. Every one of these books in this series is so fast-paced. I mean, they're all thick except for Song of Susanna. They're all thick. And you think, man, it's going to take me a while to get through that chunker. That is not the case. This is one of the rare books I could sit for hours and just read this book. Normally, I'm one of those, I like to maybe spend an hour, hour and a half on one book and then switch to another and just keep it lively with a variety of different genres, things of that nature. Oh my gosh, I believe if given the opportunity and the ability to stay awake, I would sit and read this from beginning to end if possible. It's so good. It's so good. I'm still amazed that 7 books in and Stephen King is still surprising me with what he's doing with this story. Predictability, not at all. That word has no place in anything you have to say about any of the books in this series. Very much enjoying it. And that will take care of everything that I'm currently reading. I didn't get into a whole lot because I knew that my best friend Heather was going to be arriving on Wednesday and I wouldn't be getting much reading done. Knowing she was going to be here for several days and that I wouldn't be able to read much, I didn't want to get into a whole lot. So I only started The Dark Tower. I was gonna read just as much as possible. I knew I would probably get a little bit of time here and there to read, and so I figured I would just work on the one book. So that's why my currently reading section is a little skinnier than it normally is, and also why you haven't seen me very active on any of my socials or Discord. Once Heather leaves, I'm definitely going to be adding some books to the mix. The first one being Sinless Sins by Josiah Bancroft. This is probably the only book I'll have a chance to get started on before I check in with you guys next week. Of course, my priority will be The Dark Tower. It's so good. I just want to finish it. I have to know how this journey ends. But I am also very ready to get started on Sinless Sins. This is a Discord-wide buddy read. We're going to be reading the whole series of the Books of Babel over the next 4 months. Some other folks have already gotten started on it. They seem to be really enjoying it. There's a lot of things that are tagged as spoilers that I cannot wait to catch up and click on and see what everybody is saying. So this is definitely going to be the next book that I start. So that will take care of this week's reading wrap up of what I read, what I'm still reading, and what I plan to read next. What about you guys? Did you guys do any last minute vacationing or traveling before school started? I hope you all have had a really great week this week. I hope you have an amazing weekend lined up. What are you guys planning to read this weekend? Tell me all about it in the comments down below. Guys, I will see you in the next one.